A shocker in College Station. Florida grabs a huge road win, and Ole Miss holds on at home. It was a big weekend at the top of the SEC. Plus, the bubble has another crazy week. What's it going to take for these teams to make the big dance?
Also, Kentucky has a huge road test against Missouri this weekend, and the anticipation is real as Auburn and Alabama square off for round two.
All that and more today on the Hoops Southbound Show. Maddie, this is actually outside of SEC basketball right now. One of my favorite times to watch the sport. All the small conference tournaments got started. Getting to watch my hometown team and my mid-major spotlight pick at the beginning of the season, the Little Rock Trojans tonight, seeing if they can make a run toward the NCAA tournament if they win the Ohio Valley Conference. You got anything like? I know you've got vested interest in Boise State out there as your mid-major pick, but like anything that you're keeping your eye out for on these conference tournaments or anything like that?
I mean, biggest thing for conference tournaments is, there's some people right now that are sitting on the bubble, and if they win, that could open up another spot. So there's a lot of implications as we get closer to March on some of these conference tournaments, especially for those teams, like Memphis, who may already be in, but if they win their conference tournament, that leaves a spot open for somebody else. So that's something, that a lot of people need to pay attention to, especially if they've got those teams that are kind of sitting on the bubble, because that might either propel them forward, or if somebody takes a spot that's not supposed to, might push them back a little bit.
It's very true. And then you also got bid Steelers out there as well. It's a crazy time to be watching the sport. March Madness doesn't begin after Selection Sunday. It actually gets started immediately when this month gets started with the little conferences trying to get teams in and these one big leagues in a fight. And there's going to be more about that. We're going to talk about more and more of that as we go on throughout this week. But let's talk about what happened here in the midweek and what was a wild, crazy week and a game I called. Let's talk about it in the rebound. Let's start out with that game that I called. I believe what I said to you on the Monday or whenever we recorded the show was I just got a feeling Texas A&M is going to beat Auburn. Well, guess who was right?
It
83 to
was a good feeling,
72.
David.
Do what?
I said it was a good feeling, David.
It was funny enough. Like I said, I had a feeling about that one for a while. I just felt like on the road, here we go. Looking forward to a game against Alabama. A&M's, kind of not playing their best ball, and they got a senior day here with a lot of upperclassmen in the building. Just kind of felt right. And sure enough, A&M comes out and they get the job done in this one. They shot 36% from three. This team can't shoot, and it shot 36% from three. And they also hit 18 or 25 from the free throw line in this game. Zurich Phelps has 19 points, goes plus four. Farrell Payne, 12 points, 5 rebounds. And the man, the myth, the legend of it, the Aggies, Wade Taylor, picks up 16 points, rebounds, 2 assists, and goes plus 17 in this game. Auburn struggled a bit. They did shoot 40% from three in this game and actually were 50% from the floor. But you always have the question, where the difference come in at? And the Aggies having 41 rebounds compared to Auburn's 25 definitely made a difference in what was one of the most efficient nights for the Aggies this season. Maddie, your kind of thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, huge props to Texas A&M. When they can shoot the basketball, they're a phenomenal team and somebody that you got
What
to
a
watch
thought.
out for. But the first time Texas A&M has ever won over a team that was ranked number one, so huge props to the Aggies, because this is, you know, a huge, huge win, not only for the program, but kind of for everybody right now, because we expected Auburn to, kind of maybe win out the season. But, if other games went differently last night, there could still be an SEC title on the line. But
Well, not last night, but this over the weekend. Yeah.
yeah, over the weekend. Um, but like you said, huge game for a lot of really good seniors that played their last game in Reed Arena. So, just big props to the program. I know this has got to be a good one for everybody that is an Aggie fan.
I mean, it's got to be a good feeling. The Aggies certainly they needed this win. They were falling just a little bit closer to the 3 line to the 4 line. This is a bounce. They got to bounce back, and they're still on the path to get a really good seed in the tournament. Somewhere in the top 12 is still possible for them. They're on that road, and I mean, getting a win against the best team right now in college basketball is certainly a statement. So I think this was a good moment for the Aggies. But, it does open the door to start talking about some other things as well. We're going to talk about number one seed stuff in a minute. But, Maddie, I want to start the conversation here. There was a lot of talk nationally about Cooper Flagg being player of the year now that Auburn's taken another loss. I have my own opinions on that. How do you feel about the Jedi Broom Cooper Flagg race for player of the year this year? Right now, where we
I mean,
coming off the Texas A&M game.
yeah, I still feel like Janai Broom should be the front runner here. The things that he's done this season, just fantastic. Somebody that if you look clearly at like the stat line averages, you're more than like if you're picking a pickup team and you're just looking at the person's stats, I'm picking Janai Broom. Cooper Flagg, while he's a fantastic basketball player, he's also got some of those freshman moments. He's got a lot to learn. The basketball IQ is good for a freshman, but it's not at the level of Janai Broom. So you take the talent, you take the skill, and you take the knowledge, and I think Janai Broom wins in at least two of those three categories.
I'm with you there, actually. People may not realize this because of the way they talk nationally about it, but Cooper Flagg's cost Duke some of their games this season. You may recall the Kentucky game. He turned the ball over, what, 3 times in the last 2 minutes? Like moments like that, you don't see that coming out of someone with the experience level that Janai Broom has had. I think your point on that he still does freshman things. Yeah, he's certainly Cooper Flagg's the more talented player. And if I'm picking my NBA team, I want him for his potential. But if I'm looking at a player right now in college basketball who is arguably who's played at a level higher than everyone else, that's Janai Broom. These guys have similar stats. Janai Broom, though, is averaging a double-double a night. He's got 10.7 rebounds a night and 18 points a night. He's doing sensational work, and he's over 50% from the floor. Additionally, this is the other thing. Duke plays in the weak ACC conference, and they had a weak schedule, and almost everything they have is not even comparable to the to the level of competition that Auburn has faced this season. I mean, it's nowhere close. So you got a player out here who's averaging more boards, averaging nearly the same amount of points, and he is a high usage rate player on a very talented team, and they have cleared the SEC by a couple of games. Probably it's the best conference in basketball historically, maybe one of the, if not the best conference ever in basketball, and they won it by a couple of games. They came into the last week of the season with space. That's not even comparable to what Duke has done. The Auburn's resume is great, and therefore, by contrast, yeah, Janai Broom has gotten, in my opinion, the better argument for the gauntlet that he's had to face this season. I certainly think that is the biggest argument that you have if you're trying to pick between Cooper Flagg and Janai Broom.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. You put Cooper Flagg somewhere in the SEC, I feel like we see a few more fumbles because you got the talent on teams across the board and not just a few good teams in the preseason and then one or two during conference play.
And I want to just want to throw this out there. Broom isn't just putting up numbers. He's a defensive anchor for this Auburn team. He's an emotional leader for this Auburn team, and it's something that can help them go through March. And Flagg is outstanding. He's an outstanding two-way player as well. But like you also look at the shot blocking, the rebounding, the ability to take over games. That's Janai Broom, not Cooper Flagg at the same way. Like when Janai Broom gets rolling, he is huge and the momentum, and he brings everyone and raises everyone else's game with him. I feel like with Duke, the freshmen are the limiting factor still. So I think these are two different things that we're talking about, and it's not an apples to orange, or it's not an apples to apples comparison when you look at every dynamic of what it is. Janai Broome has had the tougher challenge. He has been in the tougher league, and he has shown out and taken over games, and he's in a purebred leadership spot on this
Mhm.
Auburn team as well. To me, that should make a case for Player of the Year for him. Stats are right there. So I don't necessarily think all these people who are talking about, oh, it's locked up, it belongs to Cooper Flag now to this Texas A&M game. I'm sorry. There's some people out there with plenty of logic in their head that understand Janai Broome has played at a very high level this season. All right, let's move on because a certain team had a really, really darn good night in Coleman, and it was not the Alabama Crimson Tide. In fact, it was the Florida Gators who made an absolute statement in this one, 99-94. This is a road win against a team who's right now projected to be a number one seed. That might have gotten shuffled up just a little bit over the week here. Maddie, your thoughts on the 99-94 victory by the Gators in Tuscaloosa?
Man, I'm sure everybody on that Alabama roster, coaching staff was a little upset that Alex Condon was not still on the injured reserve list because he went off 27 points, 10 boards, getting that double double, led the Gators to this fantastic win. I mean, he not only had some great things on the stat sheet, but he made some great plays as well. I mean, you look at that, doubled with Walter Clayton Jr., 22 points and 8 assists. They just ran through this Alabama team whose defensive inefficiencies really showed out in this basketball game.
I think not only the defense was an issue, I think the boards were an issue as well. Alabama goes minus 15 on the glass in this game to this very good Florida back or front court. I mean, we've talked about it all year. You led the whole conversation off with a front court player in Alex Condon and how great that he's played. It's not many nights that you talk about Alabama and they're going to shoot 36% from three. I'll take down 35 boards and have six turnover or be four turnovers better than their opponent and lose. That's the case. That's the case here. Florida gets to this game. They shot under 30% from three. You look at the rest of the stat line here. Elijah Martin has 10 points in this one. Richard has 8 points. Those are good, not great stat lines from two of your key pieces in your backcourt. And matter of fact, Hauk has a minus plus minus in this game, as pure zero for Walter Clayton. Florida just got in there. That front court took over a ton of boards. You're talking Chinyanlu with 11, Condon with 10. They just grabbed extra chance after extra chance, terminated possession on Alabama's end over and over again. And it was a recipe for success for the Gators. And right now, this chase for a one seed is heating up, and there's three SEC teams in it. Now, Florida has a head to head with Alabama last week or over the weekend, Tennessee with the Jemai Meshack magic moment there in TBA. Tennessee's got a head-to-head with Alabama. There's a lot of pressure, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more in a second, but there's a lot of pressure on Alabama to where they're not sitting quite in that one spot where they were 2 weeks ago where you thought maybe they're the number 1 seed overall. They're probably looking right now at either the first or second 2 seed.
Yeah, I think this was a huge game, kind of determining the rest of the season for them because you've only got one game left. Not much to turn it around unless you just absolutely go off in the SEC tournament.
Not a lot happening for you.
There's not a lot of options. So
Well, it's also
just
a time thing. Like, if you beat Auburn this weekend, that's going to be a huge moment, and you're
oh
probably right back in the race. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. But clock's ticking, and who knows what the committee is going to do with conference tournaments this year?
yeah.
Do they matter? Do they not matter? I know that fans always have their opinion on things, but mm, we'll see. Because like it just depends on who's running the field, and what can get done. So conference tournaments, you're running out of time here just a little bit. You may stop counting after Friday, the wins and losses that you pick up along the way, because most of the time in the past the tournament has been seeded, except for last year apparently, where all of a sudden everything changed. So, but yeah, the clock's ticking on Alabama if they want to secure a one seed. I think this weekend might be one of their last chances to get that huge win that they need to make a statement to the committee to get into the top four. in the NCAA tournament. But Maddie, there was a team that fell just a little bit short in Oxford this weekend, or not this weekend, but this week, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers, who are also trying to hunt down a one seed as they fall 78-76. Wild game, absolutely wild game. One that we saw a little bit of up and down. Matter of fact, Tennessee dominated for the most part in the early part of this game. Seeing Ole Miss come back late. Tennessee's trying to finish this thing out. Igor Milicic, game tying layup. Can't put it in. Can't put it in. 78-76 Ole Miss. Maddie, your thoughts on this crazy game in Oxford?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like about the 10 minute mark, I don't know what in the world happened if Tennessee just decided that they were done. They were like, okay, we've got this. We don't need to worry about it. Just completely fell apart, and Ole Miss took advantage of it. Jermaine Brakefield, 19 points, just went off for this Ole Miss team. And he's one of those guys that I feel like if he is making major contributions, they're going to win a basketball game. He turned it on late and got it going. Jermaine Brakefield, I think, is the reason that Ole Miss stepped up and won this basketball game.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it all year, Tennessee's inconsistency, but this wasn't the case of that. Like, honestly, it was a breakdown more than anything else of a game that Tennessee actually played great in. They had 12 three-pointers in this game and shot at 38%. They had 33, they had 23 assists in this game, and they were right there on the glass, just -4 to Ole Miss. It's a breakdown late in this game is what ends up happening in a crazy moment. But I mean, that's Chris Beard at home getting the job done, and what's a big win for Ole Miss. They're in the tournament, but they're trying to improve their seed just a little bit at this point, and trying to improve their seed if you want to go out and win an SEC tournament. So I mean, those. It was just a breakdown by Tennessee overall, and you're right. I don't know what the heck happened, but it's gonna cost them if they don't get things figured out. But I mean, overall in this game, you still had some excellent performances. Chaz Lanier, 15 points. Para had 13 points and 7 rebounds in this game. Gainey goes off for 17. I mean, Stars played star level basketball,
Yep.
just did not get the job done. And it's one that Rick Barnes called his defense soft. And yeah, with as many second chance opportunity or with as many opportunities as Ole Miss got, they got them when they were crucial. And that definitely put the way there, put Ole Miss in a position now to help themselves a little bit more in March with maybe a more favorable seed. But that's two of the teams that are fighting for a number one seed that lost here in the midweek. Let's jump to Destination San Antonio because that is the big question right now. Maddie, who's a one seed at this point? I mean, I'll knock out the obvious two here first, just to keep it pretty obvious. And the consensus, you're talking about Auburn. They're got to be your number one overall right now. I know there's conversation nationally about like, oh, maybe Duke is the number one overall. I don't even think that's real. You're talking about a team with 9 more quad one wins than Duke, and more quad two wins, and nowhere the ridiculous amount of quad three games that Duke played. Auburn had the much more difficult schedule and has played great. They've got a cushion, in my opinion. I don't think they necessarily have to win another game to secure the number one seed overall. I think it's locked up. If you ask somebody in Durham, they'll probably give you an entirely different analysis of that. But straight up, I think right now Auburn's the number one seed in the entire tournament overall. And then Duke will be a 1 seed. I think right now they're the number 2 1 seed. But Maddie, that comes to the question next of Houston, Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida. Right now, I think Houston's that third number 1 seed. Really solid record. The only thing keeping them out of being the number 2 seed, because I think their resume is almost better than Duke's, is that one quad 2 loss that they have. That's the only issue that they have. Other than that, they have the metrics. They have every 9 quad 1 wins. They look like a great basketball team. But between Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida, I mean, who do you pick to be that fourth one?
I think I'm going to go with the Gators. Just because, look over their resume, they really don't have any absolutely terrible losses. The main things to look at, Georgia, not the best loss, still Q1. It was at Georgia. Tennessee at Tennessee, and then Kentucky. at Kentucky. The only one that's a little bit questionable is that game against Mizzou, but they're also going to be a great tournament team. So I feel like Florida's really got the best resume and best reason to win that fight.
They also have two wins over both the teams that we just mentioned. They got a win over Tennessee and they got a win over Alabama. I think that's certainly helpful here. Case for Tennessee still, even after a loss to Ole Miss, is they still have no wins out, or no losses outside of Q1. They have more Q1 wins than Florida. They have the most recent and another home win, and an equally pretty impressive win, another blowout against Florida. Florida blew Tennessee out at Gainesville. Tennessee turns around and blows Florida out in Knoxville. The metrics are there, agreeable to everyone else in net, Quimpom and Torvik. This is a Tennessee team has got good wins over Alabama. They got a good win over Florida. They've made their case. They played well when they went to Neville. I think they're a really great, good basketball team. They just didn't come out with a win when they were there in Neville. When you look at Alabama, and this is the one that really they've lost head to head to both these teams. I think they fall back to a 2 seed regardless. But let's not forget this team beat Houston as well earlier this season, and their metrics are good. They've got as many quad one wins as Tennessee and more than Florida. And they've had some huge wins. And that's why I'm like, I think they're just one win away from putting themselves back in that 1 seed category. But right now, if it's me, a road win at Oxford against a arguably what might be the best Ole Miss team ever. I don't know. I'd have to really go back on my Ole Miss history over the 10 times they've made the tournament. I think this is, I think just a stumble. Tennessee would be my fourth number 1 seed. Gators would probably be my 5. So the number 1, 2, and then Alabama after that. Alabama jumps them all with a win over Auburn, I feel like, at that point, with having that would be their 10th quad one win and a win against the best team in the country. I think that would be highly significant enough to put them in as a 1 seed at this point. So it's a race. Right now, Alabama's in third, but they can make a late charge over the weekend if they want to make a case for it. But the clock's ticking on all of them. Eventually, one of these are going to settle in. And really, the race is between these three for that last spot because there's not a lot of teams metrics wise that can reach them to compete for that fourth number 1 seed.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of teams kind of in that 1 to 2 bubble, if you will, but we've got a lot of other teams that are on the actual bubble that we need to talk about, David.
Yeah, I mean the bubble went absolutely wild this weekend. It's still nuts. It's still crazy. And here's the thing. It ain't over yet. And I mean, Texas made that pretty clear this week. Arkansas definitely made a statement with their road win this week, and Oklahoma just refuses to go away as well. Even though they're the team that everyone keeps pointing at and going, they don't deserve to make the tournament. Oklahoma keeps saying we deserve it. We deserve a chance. But yeah, I mean, right now it's pure chaos between all of them. Let's start with the first one of the weekend here, and that would be Texas taking on, or not weekend. I keep saying weekend this week, but the first one of the week, and that's Texas making a huge quad one victory over Mississippi State 87-82. They're in overtime in the hump. And do I even need to mention who the star player of this game was? Tremont
I
Mark,
think
of
everybody
course.
knows.
Yes, Tremont Mark. Tremont Mark, 24 points, 4 rebounds, 2+2 in this game, and goes 69% from the field. Trey Johnson only put up a measly 23 points.
I know, not something I think any Texas fan was ready for. We kept talking about Tremont Mark and how much of a difference maker he can be in a game. He just hadn't really turned it on much this season, and we absolutely saw him light it up in this game. A game we needed to see somebody else step up, um, other than Trey Johnson, and
Other
thankfully
than
this.
him, like someone else step up, please. Yeah, I thought Tremont Mark had an excellent game, and then Trey Johnson right there along with him has a great performance. 42 minutes on the floor in this game, plays all but 3 of this game. It was a battle. Texas shot 47.8% from the floor from three. They needed every ounce of points they can get. Like I said, they're on the bubble. There's pressure on Rodney Terry to get this team in the tournament. Right now, they haven't quite bounced back into the field yet, but you're kind of waiting to see if they can. And they got a huge game this weekend against Oklahoma. And Texas is, five quad one wins. They just need to get another good win, and that's might put them in the case. Like I said, I think this team needed to win three of its last four here of the season, excluding an elimination game in the SEC tournament. But they needed to win three of the last four. They've got one down. I think they need to win two of the last three here to kind of put themselves in. There's pressure. There's pressure, but they're still going strong. Let's talk about the two teams who are currently in the field when you continue on Tuesday night's tour and the Arkansas Razorbacks go out. And Trevin Brazile had the game of his life against Vanderbilt. The best game I've seen him play since the Duke game back a while back. And yeah, huge performance for the Razorbacks as Trevin Brazile goes for 16 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and plus 13 for the game. Huge night for Trevin Brazile. And then also Big Z comes away with 14 points. Nelly Davis, 21 points. DJ Wagner, 14 points. Just really good performances all around. And a night they didn't shoot great, but they hit 8 threes in the process and really found a way to get to the cup. Vanderbilt's in no danger. They've been off the bubble now for a minute. But this certainly helps Arkansas's case, and they're starting to float in right now to the bracket. And right now they're in 105 brackets out of 118 brackets. The reporting right now to the bracket matrix. They're in good shape. They've got a real chance of making this thing. And depending on what happens next this weekend between some of these Big Ten teams that are going to be facing off like Ohio State and Indiana. Maddie, your thoughts on Arkansas right now and their odds of making the tournament?
Yeah, I think everybody counted them out in that Vanderbilt game just because your big players, the energy guys are out. And I think everybody else took offense to that, decided to play some gritty basketball. I mean, we saw the most dunks in a game that we'd seen all season, and they absolutely
It
took
wasn't
it
just the
to Auburn.
dunks. It wasn't just a bunch of dunks. There was highlights all over.
Mhm.
Like you could make a recruitment video off the amount of dunks in this game for the Razorbacks. That three of them came from Brazil, and they were monsters. Good grief.
Yeah, so they were having fun out there, and that's what we've been needing to see more than just, you got to get down to business, but you got to enjoy yourself too. And I finally feel like we saw that from the Razorbacks. So it's making me feel a little bit better about continuing on the season because I'm not gonna lie, I definitely had some worries when a dude Thero wasn't back in for this Vanderbilt game.
I agree with you. And yeah, the status of Adute Arrow is still going to be one of the interesting questions for Arkansas going forward. But here they are right now. They're 5-9 in quad one. They just need to improve that quad two resume. Mississippi State now has dropped to a quad two game at last look with the last net update. So they got a chance to pull that quad two resume to at least 500 and put themselves 12-12 in quad one and quad two. That would be pretty solid. And then Arkansas would be, I think, in my opinion, trending closer to a 10 seed than out at this point. If they could get this win over Mississippi State, I think that would put them pretty firmly in the field into a should be lock status or should be in status, just one step behind an absolute lock. If I think that's where we're at for the Mississippi State game. They're really darn close, if not in right now. It would take a lot of bracket, or they would take a lot of bid stealers to get to Arkansas at this point, and we'll go over that in a little bit more in a minute, exactly where we're sitting. But Maddie, the last one happened on Wednesday. Oklahoma Jeremiah Fears gets the job done at home on Wednesday night, 96-84 with a win over the Missouri Tigers. What are you taking away from this? Oklahoma, they refuse to go away. Their fifth conference win of the season, and they're according to the bracket matrix in 66 brackets right now.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's one of those weird teams because if they can outshoot another team and you don't really have to worry about defense, sure, I'll pick them almost any day of the week. But I'm still not sold on this team. They're sitting at 5-12. We said 7 was probably the number. So I think they're going to have to do a lot of damage in the SEC tournament to make sure that they're in solid. And That depends. Are they even going to count those games?
Well, right now, I wouldn't say solid by any means. As the number of brackets come in, they're the second highest or the second one from out with number of brackets in, when Nebraska and your mid-major spotlight team, Boise State, tied at 59 brackets at this point. And the problem is somebody's going to make the field. So that bar is getting lowered while Oklahoma is getting a couple of key wins here late in the season to keep their hopes alive. Um, and that's really the case here. A win over Texas this weekend would be huge for Oklahoma as they could get the job done here and probably put themselves in with what would be, I believe, a six Q1 victory if I remember correctly. Like they are. Hold on, let me make sure here. Yeah, it would be a six Q1 win if they go down to Austin and win a
Mhm.
6-1 on the season. That would be probably enough, even with the bad quad three loss that Oklahoma's hanging on to here. And that's why they're just sitting right there at the bottom is that quad three loss. They got to wash that thing out and get another quad one victory here. That's the only thing kind of dragging them down as comparison to the rest of the field. They're trending closer to out than being firmly in at this point, but they're in the race, and if they win at Austin and maybe one in the SEC tournament, that might be enough, depending on how the rest of the conference tournaments shake up in the bid Steelers situation. So it's pressure, but they're doing okay somehow, some way. Even though this team we were starting to hit panic on this team a little while ago, but mm,
They're hanging in.
they're hanging in.
They got their claws in and they're not letting go.
Well, you may have also noticed that we didn't talk about Georgia beating South Carolina. With the win, Georgia pretty much locks themselves at this point. On one of the updates I saw, they're in a should be in status, much further away from the bubble, probably sitting right now at a 10 or a 9 seed for the Bulldogs. They've pretty much locked it in at this point. Getting a clearer picture on the bubble because you're probably seeing a lot of folks not really moving Arkansas or Oklahoma or Texas one way or the other. So I wanted to bring this up and just take a quick sky high view here of the field is the way that a lot of bracketologists look at things and why I actually feel like these SEC teams and these Big Ten teams are pretty comfortably in. I think the team right now, and this is no real model, but if you can jump over VCU in the bracket matrix at this point, VCU should be the last team that gets in off an at-large bid should they not win the Atlantic 10 conference. If you get over VCU, theoretically, I think you're in the tournament. The teams right now below them in the bracket matrix are Indiana, Arkansas, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Oklahoma in that order. And when you look at the quadrant one and quadrant twos in these games here, VCU's over 500 in those two quadrants. And a lot of bracketologists look at Q1 and Q2 and kind of put them together. They are not equal because if you broke these apart, you would see the number of quad one games that Arkansas has played compared to VCU. And same thing with Indiana and all these other teams. But some look at it this way, and that's part of why these bracketologists aren't moving them up or down. Further, there are teams out there like VCU's got one quad three or one quad four loss. And then this is the big thing. The net strength of schedule, VCU is 139th in the country. Some of these teams may already be above VCU. And I do think that Indiana, Arkansas, Ohio State, Nebraska might be in over them. Maybe not Nebraska, but like Ohio State, Arkansas, and Indiana are probably over VCU at this point. Because I think that's the way the committee is going to shape it out based on what they did last year, kind of ignoring the mid majors and pushing power conference teams higher. You're talking about teams with the 32nd strength of schedule or the 20th strength of schedule and the 19th strength of schedule. In Ohio State's the 19th strength of schedule because they played 3 SEC teams in the non-conference. Actually 4, I believe it was 4, Texas A&M, Texas, Kentucky, and Auburn. Like they played those teams. That's why they have an SEC strength of schedule because the Big Ten's good, and then they played a ton of SEC teams along the way. Indiana and Nebraska have tough strength of schedules, but Oklahoma's sitting there with 13. I don't think it's comparable to the rest of the bubble when you have a VCU team at 139. I think if VCU doesn't win their conference tournament, they might be out or one of the last team in. I think this actually how this thing is going to shake out, in my personal opinion. I don't want to find out necessarily if you're a Razorback fan like I am, but in this circumstance, I do think I think the committee is going to favor a lot of these strength of schedule situations, and they're going to put a lot of chips in to look at the number of quad one wins. We're valuing wins, and we're valuing good schedules. And I think the power teams are going to have an edge over any mid-major bid Steelers this year. Well, it's the number 15 versus number 16 teams in Kimpom right now. And yeah, if you look at the way these two teams play, you know it's going to be high energy offense as Kentucky goes to visit Missouri. Maddie, your thoughts on this game because you had a brilliant analysis that we talked
I
about
mean,
backstage.
I did. We've got shooters versus shooters and an okay defense against an okay defense.
Yeah,
I mean, you got Lamont Butler back for Kentucky, so Kentucky fans have got to be excited about that.
bumped
That brings
up.
the defensive level up to that okay mark. Um, but they're gonna have to do something against this Missouri team if they want to continue to try and improve that seeding. We talked about both teams are gonna be in. But it's going to be who's going to shoot the ball and who's going to actually work on defense because that's what we usually criticize these two teams about. Like we've said, Missouri got a lot better on defense this season, but Kentucky's key defensive piece in Lamont Butler is back. So I think we'll see a lot more fight in the front court with this Missouri defense against Kentucky's big men, but a lot more fight around the perimeter with Lamont Butler leading the pack.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big portion of it. Is how these two who's going to be able to prevail where. I one thing I do like about Missouri in this game is the fact that they will steal the basketball and they cause turnovers. Really, Kentucky struggled at causing turnovers all season, and here you are on the road. Your team's behind you. It's senior day. Everything else that you want to see, you know, you got a big seat on the line, and Kentucky's coming to town. I totally expect fans to be ready there on that home court advantage, that home court advantage that Missouri is going to have in this game. I think that's going to be a big part of it. And I mean, honestly, that's kind of where Kentucky struggled this season. Further than that, you're talking about a lot of depth right now with Anthony Robinson all the way down to Marquise Work on just one spot in that point guard position. And then you just keep going down the line. You're talking about a huge rotation that you've got a lot of different variations of. Trent Pierce play ball. You're going to have Mark Mitchell play ball out there. You're going to see five deep being rotated into the four spot. I mean, Missouri's a very good basketball team. I think Amari Williams is kind of the key piece for Kentucky and how well they dominate the interior in this game. How well do you get to the paint? I think that's what's going to be important for Kentucky in this one because we've seen it. If you can make this a cutting kind of game, which Mark Pope is really good at drawing up, then you can take advantage of a Missouri on defense. But it's also the same way on the other end of the court, where if you allow Missouri to start rocking from three and get some clean looks, and they got shooters all around the perimeter, and they can get the ball dumped in easily to Trent Pierce to stretch you, yeah, they're a tough out as well. Both these teams rocking 37% behind the arc. Both these teams over 55% from the paint, and then from two. Yeah, this is about as hard to pick apart teams. They're about the same dang basketball team at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. It almost looks like a scrimmage against, your mixed team of I feel like you could swap a couple players and still have a very similar outcome in this game.
I definitely feel that way. Is that you swap a few guys here and there, and yeah, you probably probably comes out the same way. I think they could go out there and probably pick and be like, I want Mamari and give me Caleb Grill. And then the other guy comes over there and it's like, give me Trent Pierce and but yeah, I'll take Jordan Sears and you know what? I'll take Anthony or I'll take Jackson Robinson. Of course, Jackson Robinson is going to be out. He's done for the season. But yeah, at the end of the day, these guys are, you could just shuffle these teams and you would probably get mixed up in between the two of them. And then, I mean, Kim Pom says the exact same thing on a number standpoint. The offense for Kentucky is number 6 in the country. The offense for Missouri, fifth in the country. The defense for Missouri, 69th in the country. The defense for Kentucky has actually risen, but it's at 56 in the country. You're talking about two very, very similar basketball teams running different offenses with the same goal. A lot of threes, a lot of easy twos, and a lot of making the defenders make business decisions to defend anything. So yeah, it's a tough game to pull anybody apart from here. But Kim Palm's got this game 86-83. Maddie, I'll tell you, if Kentucky wins this thing, they lock up, in my opinion, a chance for a top 12 seed, or they at least get themselves firmly in that conversation heading into the SEC tournament. Missouri's trying to get in that top 16 conversation. Last I saw, they're closer to a 6 seed than a 4 seed. Win here would be huge.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Missouri at this one. Like you said, there's a lot of outside impact on this game. You're going to have a senior night. You're going to be in Como, last game of the season. Fans are going to be there. They're going to be rowdy, and we know that it's slowly gotten to be a better home court advantage. And like we said, Mizzou's defense keeps getting better. I'm not 100% sold on Kentucky's. Like I said, you got that main piece in Lamont Butler back, who always seems to, raise the level of play there for Kentucky. But I got to go with Mizzou in this one.
I was just looking at it here, and throughout SEC play, and only one game this season has Missouri not scored 80 or more points. Their last trip home, they scored 101 points. The game before that, they put up 110. I think Missouri is going to be running, and I think they're going to be ready for this game. And the way their offense is playing at home, that's a lot even for Kentucky's offense. They're going to have to keep pace all the way. Um, I'm not saying that this game isn't going to be a fight, but I don't know. A 200 over doesn't sound crazy to me in this one, but I'm going to go Missouri and their their home court fans pull them across the finish line here. It'll be a wild one, an absolutely wild one for Missouri this season. And yeah, they were my number one under the radar team this season. I loved the depth. I loved this team this season and all the talent they have. They've got a bright future if they can keep this trajectory up, but this was definitely the best team Dennis Gates has ever had. Let's see if they can cap off the end of the season. All right, Maddie, it's the big one. It's Alabama and Auburn round two. It's not all the drama that we had hoped this game would be on March 8th with the SEC title on the line and everything else. But Alabama would certainly love to go into Neville, bounce back after that Florida loss, get some redemption for what happened in Coleman, and just have a really good feeling after the end of the year that kind of says things just didn't bounce our way this year. But you know what? We still got the win in your home court. Auburn's looking to make sure that they sweep Alabama on the year. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, we talked about how this game could be huge. I still think it is huge. Not quite, the implications we thought there would be, but you got two elite teams, one of them fighting for a 1 seed, both of them coming off of losses that people did not expect them to take. I feel like this is going to be a fight to the death. We may see ejections, we're going to see a lot of fouls, and we're going to see a lot of buckets made in this game.
I do feel the buckets. I do feel a lot of the action is going to be happening from two in this game. I definitely know Alabama is going to want to run. It's good to see Jani Broome is healthy, or it appears to be healthy after the injury that he took down there at Texas A&M. Of course, he came back on the floor in that one anyway. But it's nice to see that all signs point to Jani Broome being in this game, and that's something I'm ready for. Is I want to watch a fully healthy Auburn team in this basketball game to close out the year
Mm.
in what's a big time rivalry matchup. But you definitely know that Mark Sears doesn't want to go out on his last year at Alabama without a win over Auburn. They certainly want to get that done. I think Nate Oates is going to have this team prepared in a lot of ways too. I think it's going to be a big fight, but I think it all comes down to how does Alabama perform on defense? Because last time Auburn came out and they hit some shots early, and Alabama didn't have an answer until late, until they found some momentum, and it took a while for Alabama's offense to get going. I want to see how fast Alabama settles into this game offensively, and if they can have their defense going at the beginning of the game and really start churning out there. This one's going to be certainly exciting, and it's another one, Maddie, where I just really feel like the computer just I don't know what they're doing here lately. But they picked Auburn by 70% to be going to College Station and beat them and to beat the Aggies. And yeah, Texas A&M really got a job done. I don't 80%. I don't know. I think Kimbom's still a little inflated here. I think there's a little bit of pride on the line when you face two of the best teams in college basketball together. I don't care what floor you're on. Definitely think that was going to make a difference, but I am feeling 80%. What do you think?
I don't think it's 80%. I think it's closer to maybe 60,
Yeah,
maybe even
65.
less.
Yeah.
But I feel like Auburn is not going to go out at home last game of the year after a devastating loss to A&M. I don't think they're going to let Mark Sears or anybody take a win away from them there.
It would be quite the sweep if Auburn got the win over Alabama here. Key areas to watch. Let's see how the three balls falling for Auburn in this game. Obviously, they shoot extremely well from three. If they get into some rhythm, we'll watch that how that goes. Turnover is going to be a key area to watch. Alabama's been a little bit turnover at times. Auburn has been the number 5 team in the country when it comes to turnovers, taking care of the basketball. And then they do a decent job of turning over teams. And then the offensive glass, Alabama, if they can, they've been better on the offensive glass this season. And Auburn's one big struggle area has actually been allowing teams to get in on the offensive glass. Part of the reason Texas A&M was so successful against them. So watch that area, how well that Nate Oates gets those blue collar points that are significantly important to this team and the fight that they have there. Ken Palm's got this game 92-83 at 80%, as we mentioned. I'm going to go Auburn, but I'm waiting for Alabama to surprise us all here in this chase for a 1 seed. That would be a wild way to finish the season.
Yep. Crazy, crazy stuff. I really think it's going to be closer. I think we're looking at a handful of points, maybe two, maybe a 3 possession game, but um I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that.
Well, certainly so. Hey, we got 2 other very important games. It's not going to be, 2 of the best teams in the country facing each other, but these are crucial games for 2 teams chasing a 1 seed as well in this conference. And South Carolina, who has really just Georgia got the job done. I will give credit to Georgia for going into Columbia and making sure they did not fall for the same trap that Texas and Arkansas fell into there. But they got to go on the road and face Tennessee, and I'm not putting anything past South Carolina ruining Tennessee's weekend right now. Um, this is a team that has nothing to lose going in here, and Tennessee has a lot to gain by making sure they don't lose against South Carolina, or at least not taking that quad 3 loss opportunity that's being presented to them on their home court to finish the year. But that's a key one to watch. Tennessee's got to win it if they want to keep their chances at a number 1 seed alive. You can't lose a quad 3 game and expect to be a 1 seed. And then Florida also takes on Ole Miss in Gainesville. That's a huge game. Good opportunity for the Gators to even boost that resume a little bit more. But Maddie, there's some games happening on the bubble this weekend as well. Mississippi State comes to Fayetteville to take on the Razorbacks. Arkansas needs to get a dub here, get that Q2 resume back to 500. I think that'll really lock it up for them and putting them in the tournament at this point. Vanderbilt takes the trip to Georgia. Both these teams are pretty much out of the bubble picture. I'm just kind of listing them here. It is a big basketball game between these two. Probably the winner here secures a 10 seed, whereas we see the loser of this one be a little bit shakier exactly on their position on Selection Sunday. But both these teams are pretty much should be in. I think Vanderbilt's actually a lock at this point. And then the big one right here. This is a bubble versus bubble matchup here. We mentioned that Oklahoma looks like the last team in, while Texas is one of the teams that are close at this point to being in, but not quite in. They're currently in 8 out of 108 bracket or 118 brackets in the bracket matrix. They could switch spots with Oklahoma real fast with a win in Austin this weekend in the Red River rivalry. Huge game there. These are crucial bubble games. A lot of things to keep your eye on outside of the SEC as well on how the bubble will shake out to this point. But Maddie, overall, this is our last show of the regular season. Next week, on Sunday we'll come in. We'll talk about what happened over the weekend. We probably won't preview the SEC tournament yet. We'll probably wait until Wednesday or something or Tuesday. We'll do like back-to-back shows or something like that. But we'll talk about recap the end of the year or something like that. But yeah, this is the end of the regular season. So guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us this year. We greatly appreciate it. It's time to start talking tournament basketball after this weekend. And one of us, probably me, will be, that's our relationship on this show. We'll be here every night is my plan during the SEC tournament. we'll talk about the SEC tournament preview and stuff like that, but we're also keeping an eye on the things that are happening outside the SEC tournament that's really going to impact these bubble teams and seeding as well, and kind of just some thoughts as we go through the tournament. And then we're a short little bit of ways here from the Welcome to the Madness show destination in San Antonio. That'll be a fun one as well. So, guys, if you're not already, please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.